Jets Winnipeg Jets. The story of the Winnipeg Jets is convoluted and kind of awkward, but here's looking at this one. So anyway, this Jets What If is basically talking about the Jets Thrashers franchise. Yeah, I know that this What If is a Jets one, and it will be from before they move to Phoenix, but I'll tell you the story about the Winnipeg Jets until they get to Phoenix and then the rebirth. So the Winnipeg Jets were a famous team in the WHA in 1972. They signed Bobby Hall to a $1 million contract. Basically, Chicago was pissed that Hall would choose money over fame with the Hawks. So Winnipeg got their first major guy. But Winnipeg also made a splash a couple years later by signing a couple of foreigners, Anders Hedberg and Lars Erik Sjöberg from Sweden. Basically, the Jets employed Europeans, a lot of Europeans, to help with their team. And heck, a couple of Africa Cups worked, including the final one in 1979. The Jets were one of the 4 teams that were allowed to merge with the NHL. The Jets, the Whalers, the Oilers, and the Nordiques. Oh, by the way, this is the last. What was this one? Yeah, this is the last of the 4 WHA teams to actually take part. So anyway, the Winnipeg Jets started out life decent. But, however, Bobby Hall had some problems with sleeping in, and it cost him dearly. After one game in which he wasn't allowed to play against the Montreal Canadiens, and then the Jets beat the Habs, he decided he wanted to leave. But the problem was that he was a part owner of the Jets, and trading him somewhere else was not an option. But they worked something out. So the Winnipeg Jets sent him to Hartford. Winnipeg was terrible. 1981 was the epitome of shittiness, as they had a 30-game losing winless streak. They actually only won 8 games in the 80 games played in 1981. So the Winnipeg Jets easily got the number 1 pick. But thankfully enough, they picked up Dale Hawerchuk, who was a decent player for the Cornwall Royals. He helped the Jets get a little bit more respectable. 1985 would be a fantastic year for Winnipeg. Obviously, I was born in Kitchener, but anyway. The Winnipeg Jets took on the Calgary Flames in the first round of the 1985 playoffs. Winnipeg ended up winning that best of 5 series 3-1. The Jets would then move on to face the powerhouse Oilers and get swept in 4 straight. 1987, the Jets beat the Flames in the playoffs yet again, second time in 3 years. And guess what? They bumped into the Oilers, and you know what happened. Oilers sweep the Jets in 4 straight. The Jets were frustrated. 1990 seemed to be the same way. They faced the Edmonton Oilers again. Edmonton didn't have Gretzky, but they still had a decent nucleus. And that nucleus almost was bombed. The Jets had a 3-1 series lead on the Oilers, especially that Game 4 double overtime goal by Dave Ellett, future Leaf. All that. If you can forget Don Whitman and John Garrett's call for CBC. John Garrett saying, they're 0 for 7 on the power play. Would you call a penalty shot in overtime? They nearly did. In double overtime, then Dave Ellett scores, and the Jets go bananas. Winnipeg is up 3-1 on the Oilers. They might be going to the second round. And then it collapsed. Messier led the Oilers. Bill Ranford played like he should have been the number 1 goalie instead of Grant Fuhr. Oilers went on to win the Stanley Cup. The Jets must have been pissed. 92 was also a bad year for the Jets with 3-1 lead. They had 3-1 lead on the Canucks that picked up Pavel Bure and still had Kirk McLean. Favorite Kirk McLean. The Jets choked despite a couple of whiteouts, just like 1990. Like, what the fuck is going on? How the hell can you blow this? Well, in 1992, the Jets did blow it. They blew that 3-1 lead and were left to crap in their boots. So 1993 pops up, and the Winnipeg Jets look like they are going to be smart. And all of a sudden, you got yourself T. Mussolini, the Finnish Flash. It's going to be like, this freshman's going to help us do well. And did well, he did. 76 goals. He tied for the NHL lead in goals as a rookie. He tied with Alex Mogilny of the Sabres. But, man, 76 goals. And you had a young Keith Kachuk and a few other people like Shamnoff. The Jets looked good in '93. They took on the Vancouver Canucks, and heck, they thought they were going to do well, but the Canucks took them out again, second straight year. The Jets in '94 weren't really good in the playoffs, and then they made a trade sending Bob Essence out to Detroit for Tim Chivalday. The trade actually did not work out in Detroit's favor because Detroit just faltered. So then the Jets in '95, they're threatened with extinction. They could be going to Minnesota. So they had this big event planned after their last home game. They're not going to make the playoffs, but they're going to have a big gala and all that. They even had a Save Our Jets thing, and it worked. The Jets got saved, and Minnesota would have to wait 5 years till their hockey franchise dreams could come true. Unfortunately, Winnipeg kind of played a lame duck season because there were rumors that it wasn't going to be enough to fix them in '97, and that Arizona wanted a team. Nice job, Wayne Gretzky. Make sure that the NHL self had some hockey prowess, and that's why we have franchises in Arizona and Georgia and Florida that don't deserve there. So anyway, the Jets did make the playoffs as the 8th seed. Kind of weird how the Jets made the playoffs, even though they traded Timo Solani away to Anaheim for Oleg Tverdovsky. The Jets screwed themselves up, but they made the playoffs, and Nikolai Khabibulin came out of freaking nowhere to put on a clinic in Game 5 of the first round series against the Detroit Red Wings. The 62 win Detroit Red Wings, in fact. The only problem was that, well, what can you do? Jets lost Game 6 on home ice, and of course, they bid their farewell to their fans and all that. Unfortunately, the Canadian dollar was not doing that well against the American dollar because, you pay in American dollars, and then the taxes are in Canadian dollars. So, of course, tax problems. That's why the Jets and Nordiques didn't make it that far. So Winnipeg was left without a hockey franchise. They got the IHL/AHL team in Manitoba, but nothing doing. However, a big and a light hit in 2011. Now, as I said, I'm going to skip over the Coyotes saga because that's for a different time. Is that the Jets, Atlanta wanted to sell their team in the worst possible way, and Bettman was doing all he fucking can to make sure that someone in the United States still had a team. Unfortunately, Bettman lost the battle, and Winnipeg was named the team that the Thrashers would be moving to. So the Atlanta Thrashers came alive in 1999. They were a crappy team. They had some young talent. Ilya Kovalchuk, Patrick Stefan. Yeah, they put Patrick Stefan first overall in the '99 draft. Why, I don't know. Because they couldn't get the Sedin twins, I guess. Pasi Newman, Kerry Luttinen, Danny Heatley was a star with that, Dan Snyder, but of course Danny Heatley messed himself up by crashing his Porsche and killing Dan Snyder. Heatley got lucky he didn't go to jail for manslaughter. And it was such a bad move that Danny Heatley was removed as the face of NHL 2004 and replaced with Joe Sakic. But anyway, Atlanta made one playoff appearance in their time. Yes, the Atlanta Thrashers. That was in 2008 when they were very good. 2006, when they won the Southeast Division somehow and faced the New York Rangers. But a playoff tested team usually wins. And yes, they did. The Atlanta Thrashers lost out to the Rangers in 4 straight. Thrashers were pretty much a lame duck franchise. Ilya Kovalchuk even wanted to leave for another team, and he did to New Jersey, but New Jersey had problems with the cap and all that with his 17-year contract or whatever the hell it was. So yeah, the Thrashers moved to the Jets. Winnipeg treated its franchise well, even though they had the smallest rink in the NHL. But there's something that Bettman couldn't buy: civic pride. Winnipeg even got to the 2015 playoffs. Unfortunately, Anaheim swept them. But in 2018, they had a magical run of epic proportions. That got them all the way to the conference finals. They actually shocked everyone by beating Nashville in 7 games because Nashville seemed to be the class of the division. But Winnipeg took on Vegas, and I'm thinking, well, here we go. Vegas is an expansion team. Winnipeg is going to definitely rock them. No, they didn't. I'm like, oh my God, how could we lose to a team like Vegas? I guess Gary Bettman was smiling because, Southern United States fucked over Canada. Cunt. So anyway, Winnipeg has been trying to get on the mountaintop. So let's talk about the 1990 Winnipeg Jets. Of course, they're affiliated with the Coyotes, but not the Thrashers. So the 1990 Winnipeg Jets were decent. They still had Dale Hawerchuk before he left for Buffalo in a trade for, I believe, who was the guy from Buffalo? I would say Bodger, but I'm wrong. Buffalo sent someone to Winnipeg. Darren Shannon? I don't know. But anyway, Winnipeg had that 3-1 series lead, like I alluded to, against the Oilers. So let's say the Jets win in 5 games against the Oilers. Now they take on the LA Kings in the division final. 1990. Of course, the Kings took care of the defending Stanley Cup champion Calgary Flames in the other one. So we don't touch the Eastern Conference. So that's definitely Boston. So the winner of Winnipeg versus LA would meet the North champion, that being the Chicago Blackhawks, if memory serves me right. But here's the thing. Edmonton won the Stanley Cup, so what am I going to do? I'll probably have to do a few simulations and all that. So yeah, let's party on. So the Kings and the Jets fight each other. Rudy versus Essensa to start this series. The Jets had a better record, so that's why they are at home. And hey, you know what? It started off well for the Kings. The Kings had a 5. What? I only made the starting lineups. I didn't do anything. So Thomas Onstrom scored a goal. Then McSorley scored 2. Todd Ellick and then John Tonelli. John Tonelli was still in the league at that time. He made 5-0. Ensign replaced by Stefan Bubagard. And then after Brian Benning went off for roughing, Paul Fenton scored to make it 5-1 Jets. Dave Elliott made it 5-2. And then Bertie Nichols gets in trouble for unsportsmanlike conduct. He's out for 10 minutes. And in that time, Pat Ellingnuck made it 5-3. And then the Jets come back in the third period. Doug Evans at 4:01. Dave McElwain at 4:55. And then with 4 minutes left, Doug Evans scores from Dale Hawerchuk. Talk about your unsung heroes. I think people don't know who Doug Evans or Dave McElwain are, except for me because I have their hockey cards. So the 1990 Kings had McSorley, Nichols, Robinson, Benning, Gretzky, Waters, Robitaille, Sandstrom, Ellick, Tonelli, Bob Helkadis, Kudelski, Taylor, Jay Miller, Krushinetsky, Granado, and Duchesne. Winnipeg counters with Elliott, Hawerchuk, Steen, Ellionek, Donnelly, Cronin, Newman, Peter Tangolani. Really? Doug Evans, Kozlowski, Ashton, Fenton, McElwain, McDermott, Brett Hughes, Boschman, Carlisle. Carlisle didn't play that many minutes. That's unusual. And Freddie Olesen. Stefan Bubagard, 28 saves. Helkadis and Doug Evans were actually hurt, respectfully. Doug Evans was named the first starting, although he left the game with injury. McSorley, the second start. Stefan Bubagard, the third start. Wow. That's amazing. Well, they said, well, if he could do that, let's see what happens. Well, in a high-scoring 90 style, it was 10-8 Kings. Can you believe it? It was 2-2 after one period. McSorley and Benning for the Kings, Ashton and Steen for the Jets. And then Robitaille scored, Elliott, Paul Fenton, Thomas Osborne, Bertie Nichols. Gretzky scored a shorthanded goal, even though Nichols was in the box. Bubagard replaced by Bob Ensa. Thomas Steen made it 6-5, but Gretzky scored another power play goal to make it 7-5. McSorley and McElwain get in trouble for fighting. Mike Krushinetsky scores to make it 8-5, and the game seems over. But Dave Elliott scores to make it 8-6. Thomas Steen made it 8-7. And looking well. But at 14:38, Larry Robinson scores to make it 9-7. Paul Fenton, that's 18:21, did it. Unfortunately, with even though Brian Benning and Jay Miller were in the box, the Jets had a 5-on-3 or a 6-on-3 because they pulled the goalie. And Nichols easily scored into the net to make it 10-8. 10 goals on 64 shots, 8 goals on 49 for Winnipeg. Ensign did much better than Bubagard. Kelly Rudy was in net for all 8 goals, and he still won the game. Tim Waters and Rob Blake actually got injured for LA. Wow, they lose 2 defensemen, and they still won the fucking game. Gretzky, Elliott, Fenton, your 3 stars. So the series is tied at 1 pair. They go back to Ensign South because why not? And the Kings win, but this time a little more tame, 5-2. McSorley, Krushinetsky, Brian Benning, and Nichols scored for the Kings. Brett Ashton made it 4-1. But then Dale Hawerchuk made it 4-2. Jay Miller made it 5-2. Ensign South replaced And then there's a major fight between Donnelly and Bernie Nichols. Donnelly gets 17 minutes in penalties because of his instigation thing. But the Kings win 5-2. It was a bit more tame this time. Essence again had to be against Bubagard didn't give up a goal. McSorley, Bubagard, Rudy, the 3 stars of the game. So the Kings decide to go back to Bubagard. What is it, 2-1? Yeah, it's 2-1. Go to there. And the Kings won 7-4 on home turf. They look like they've got the Jets there. Jay Miller got ejected for the Kings, but they still had them win. Robitaille and Nichols scored in the first period for the Kings. Evans for the Jets. Dale Hawerchuk made it 2-2 before Krushelewski made it 3-2. Ellinak tied it up for the Jets. McSorley scored to make it 4-3. Paul Fenton on the power play made it 4-4. But late, the Kings put up 3 goals in the third period. McSorley, Robitaille. Beauregard did a little bit decent, but not decent enough. Jay Miller got ejected, but McSorley, Robitaille, Rudy, the 3 stars. So the Jets look like they're down and out. They'll have to do the 3-1 comeback. And they can't. The Kings easily get them in Game 5. Not even close. 7-3 your score. Kings would have swept the Jets if it wasn't for the Jets comeback in Game 1. Ellinak scored for the Jets, Robitaille and Gretzky. But after goals by McSorley, Kudelski, and Bernie Nichols make it 5-2, Essence replaced. Pat Ellinak gets a goal. Sean Cronin intentionally injures Tony Granato and is ejected. Gretzky and Robitaille made it 7-3. The Kings easily won that game. Helkadis and Granato got hurt for the Kings, but it was not Rudy, Gretzky, Robitaille. So I guess Kelly Rudy was getting net. But now comes the hard part. It's like the Kings take on the Blackhawks. And, you know, who could win the Stanley Cup? So, yeah. Blackhawks were 8 games above 500. Greg Millen actually was the goalie for the Blackhawks in the playoffs. Game 1 saw the Blackhawks win 9-8. Marty McSorley got ejected in the first period for a kneeing call. Blackhawks had an 8-3 lead. And it almost disappeared. It was 8-7 before Doug Wilson finally scored to make it 9-7. So goals by Bernie Nichols put up 4 goals in a losing effort. Doug Wilson the first star, Jeremy Roenick the third star. Yeah, I'm gonna hustle. I'm gonna speed this up a little bit. Game 2 saw the Kings win 5-2. Goals by Taylor, McSorley, Krushelewski, Sandstrom, and Gretzky. For the Kings, the Blackhawks had Denny Savard and Greg Gilbert score. Series tied and switch her up to Los Angeles. Game 3 sees the Kings went 8-7. Bob McGill gets ejected for a kneeing call for the Blackhawks. Adam Craig and Steve Duchesne have a big fight. All that. Bernie Nichols wins the game with a minute 30 left. Goals. See there, Nichols with 3 goals, Gretzky with 2. It was Nichols, Wilson, and Gretzky the 3 stars of the game. Game 4 sees the Blackhawks get the revenge 6-2. Robitaille, Creighton, Thomas Sandstrom gets in trouble for instigating 17 minutes of penalties. And all that. Dave Manson gets ejected for a kneeing call. Make it 4-1. Yeah. So goals for the Blackhawks. Creighton with 2. Murray, Thomas, Danny Savard, Larmer, Robitaille, and Sandstrom for LA. Creighton, Millen, and Thomas are the 3 stars. Series tied at 2. Going back to Chicago. When the Blackhawks scored 7 goals in the first period and win the game. Ken Baumgartner got ejected for the 90 Kings for cross-checking. The Hawks had a 6-0 lead. Creighton, Thomas, Yanni, Creighton, Savard. Blackhawks, Keith Brown made it 7-1. Dave Manson got ejected for knee. So Dave Manson kept getting ejected for the Blackhawks. So the Blackhawks are up 3-2, headed back to Los Angeles. When they win in overtime to win the series in 6, so it would be Blackhawks Bruins, an original 6 matchup. Dirk Graham actually saved the game with a goal late. And the Kings shot themselves in the foot. Dave Taylor got carded for cross-checking, and Bernie Nichols got a double minor for high sticking. Adam Creighton scored from Gilbert and Steve Larmer. I really don't know about this. Maybe I should just do a one-game winner take all or something like that, because I'm running out of space. Yeah, so Boston seemed to be the better team. Greg Hug on my ass. It should be Glenn Leslie. So in the game I did, the Bruins win 6-3. I think we'll give the Bruins the 1990 Stanley Cup. I mean, they kind of deserve it in a way. Great work. And so you didn't have to leave Boston to search for a Stanley Cup. But that's the way things go sometimes. For Winnipeg, we forgot all about Winnipeg, but they lost. Not good.